A very good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America in Washington. And this is Live Talk. I am Kip Stube in Pattonsville, Maryland.
And I am Tanono Kawande.
Tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about COVID-19, Christmas and the United States presidential transition and other issues.
The Ministry of Health reports that there were 174 new cases of COVID-19 and 2 people died of the disease in Zimbabwe yesterday. More than 12,000 people have contracted COVID-19 since March this year in the country. At least 10,000 people have recovered from the disease. COVID-19 has claimed the lives of 320 in Zimbabwe.
Worldwide, according to Johns Hopkins University, almost 77 million people have contracted COVID-19. More than 1.7 million people have succumbed to the disease. In USA alone, almost 18 million people have contracted COVID-19 and over 317,000 have died.
And the opposition movement for democratic change, led by Ms. Thokozani Kupe, was expected on Saturday to hold an extraordinary Congress in compliance with a Supreme Court ruling. The Congress was postponed due to what the party said were logistical problems, an incomplete voters' roll, and other issues. Ms. Kupe and other officials had this to say about the Congress.
How can people vote? The Sundays are all here, and how can people proceed to vote? Our structures and party supporters and all delegates have been advised that the new date of the Congress will be announced, as we've done now.
And why do you meet at residence when you have headquarters, offices and so forth?
We can choose to meet anyway as a standing committee. This is not the first time to meet here. We can always meet anyway we agree, as convenient to us. Yesterday we had Harvest House, today we are here, so we just choose where to meet at a particular moment.
Lezinto eziningi kodwa iviki elilandelayo lesilethemba lokuthi sizawenza umhlangano wethu uphume kuhlonye kumangalisayo.
Abanye bebethinga laba besithi bekulokulwa kade kukhona phakathi kwenkokeli. Ningathini ngalokho?
Akulanto enjalo. Akulanto enjalo nje bosibona nje sihlangene lapha sijabula silungiselela ukuthi umdlalo wethu ube muhlonye kumangalisayo.
Njengoba abaningi besazi bekumele kube ngabe sibambe extraordinary Congress yethu namhlanje kodwa sizwile umkhulumi weparty la uDeputy spokesperson uMashakada echaza la ukubana akuzange kwenzakale lokho ngoba i-voters roll kukhanya isafuna ukulungiswa, so basakhangelela ukuthi ilungiswe le voters roll and then umhlangano i-extraordinary congress isibanjwa mhla ka-27 kuyo lenyanga kaDisemba. Lokho kwenzeka ngoba uhulumende wanikeza umhlangano up to ukuphela kukaDisemba ukuthi i-extraordinary congress le yenzakala. Njengalokho ke kusho ukuthi i-extraordinary congress le isizobanjwa ke mhla ka-27.
Abanye bayachasisa laba besithi kulodaba lokubana kule mali ezatshontshwayo kubandla, abanye njalo kulwisana okukhona phakathi kwebandla. Lithini ngalokho njengebandla?
Well, udaba lwemali I think into yaphuma boma last week yakhulunywa yaba kumaphephandaba sabona ama-responsive ngenye response yavela ku-president isithi hayi imali lana yabhadala izikwelede zomhlangano nje. Okwaphambanisekayo ukuthi akuzange kube le authority, akuzange kube le approval ngendlela imali ekumele ziphathwe ngakhona, ngoba imali lezi kumele lazi izimali zomphakathi, akusizi imali nje zabantu, ngama-taxes abantu la, ngoba imali lezi sithola kuhulumende. So njengalokho kwakubalulekile ukuthi kuchaziswe, kumele kube le system yokuthi izimali ziphuma njani emhlanganweni, and le system kusho ukuthi kwasuka kungakwaba lokungaqedakali kahle ukuthi ihambe kanjani, then kwase kufuna ukuthi kube lokucazululwa ukuthi kwenzakaleni ngalokho. So sakubona kucazululiwe ke lokho kwaleyo mali okwakuthiwa ishort.
So one day, those are some of the people who represent the MTC. So they were talking about the Congress that was supposed to be at the weekend but was postponed. Yebo guys, ulukandaba kuningi lamuntu esipoka ngakho okunye kwankhona ikhononke lokuzwayo ukuthi MDC bekumele be lo mhlangano womkhulu ngempela viki. Liyakhumbula ke isinqumo esenziwa i-Supreme Court eyayithe kumele benze umhlangano lowo ukwenza ukuthi balungise ke isikhundla sikaMuyi uMorgan Tsvangirai. So ke awusenzakalanga umhlangano lowo, kukhanya ngazani ke i-voters roll yabo ngokukhuluma kwabo sibili wathi izimvuthu, so kumele bekulungise konke lokho. Kuzobuya njalo lokunye okwe-logistics lento ezinjalo, libona lumakhuphe ekhuluma esithi hayi abajukani kangaka abalwi kodwa bazama ukuthi belungise, kodwa baziyo ngokwezakalayo bathi kungani kulobo zima okunye obumangalisayo. So ke nxa sikhangela ke okunye siyakhuluma ke nge-COVID-19 siyabona eZimbabwe lokhu memetheka kakhulu umkhuhlane lo, sokulabantu abedlula 12,000 asebebanjwe i-COVID-19, kuthi abedlula kancane 10,000 sebaphepha kumkhuhlane lo, kuzokuthi ke abafika 320 khonapho ungani sebabulawa i-COVID-19. So ke lakhona kuye esiyabe silakho namhlanje ukuthi sikhangela imsakazo ukuthi imsakazo ingabe menjani. Siyakwazi ukuthi kulama community radio stations wande amathathu aphiwa amacence ukuthi ba broadcast kunjalo, sokangena khonapho wande.
Tireti bazi rezveutano rinotaura kuti kune vanhu vanosvika 140 vakabatwa neCovid-19 uyezve vaviri vakafa nezuro muZimbabwe. Kusvika pari zvino vanhu vanopfuura 12,000 vakabata chirwere ichi gore rino muZimbabwe. Chirwere ichi chiri kuramba chichienderera mberi chiri kuonekwa munyika dzakawanda-wanda. Ndo imwe nyaya yatinoda kutaura nezvayo. Iko zvino tinonzwa zvekuti kune zvimwe zvaakuitika kuEurope pamusoro pechirwere ichochi. Saka tinoda kuti titarise munyaya yechirwere ichi nezviri kuitwa nezvingaitwa kuitira kuti zvisaramba zvichienderera mberi. Panezve nyaya yeMDC ichiri kusanotungamirwa naamai Thokozani Kupe, vakanga vachina kuita musangano wavo zvondora mupfuura iri, asi ukakanzugwa kasi uchazotoitwa vachiti zvanzi pane zvinhu zvakati wande zvakapinda munzira zvakafanana negwaro revoters roll risina kunyatsomira zvakanaka nezvimwe zvavakataura. Ndo zvimwe zvatoda kuti titaure, titarise kuti chii chinomboramba chichinetsa mapato ezvematongerero enyika munyika, sezvo imwe nerimwe bato richiita serine maproblems akasiyana nemamwe zvinotadzisa kuti vaite basa ravo ravanofanira kuita. Duve.
Yes, we are also talking about what the government did recently. We know that the government actually issued 3 licenses, that is community radio station licenses, to Mbembesi Development Trust, trading as Inganga. I've never heard this word. Inganga FM. Then also we are Intepe Manama Community Radio Trust, Le Nyangani Community Radio Trust, trading as Nyangani FM. We're lucky that we've got one of the guys at the Zimbabwe Association of Community Radio Stations, and that is Mr. Jerry Zungwevu. He works with Zakras. So let's get him on board and hear what he's going to say about the radio stations. Mr. Zungwevu, welcome to the program. Can you?
Okay.
Yes. So, how are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, Gibbs. How are you?
No, I'm very well. How's Harare?
Harare is a bit rainy today. We've been fortunate enough to have been receiving some rains for the past 2 weeks.
Yes. So, Jerry, tell us. We see that there are 3 community radio stations that have been awarded licenses. You've been talking about this issue for a long time. What does it mean to you to get these kind of licenses?
You know, you speak of the World Cup in soccer circles, and you are saying we've qualified for the finals. We are saying since the enactment of the Broadcasting Act in 2001, there has not been any community radio station that has been licensed in Zimbabwe. I mentioned the PSA Act of 2001 because it is the one that paved way for the introduction of the 3-tier system in broadcasting in Zimbabwe, which is the public broadcasting, the commercial broadcasting, and the community broadcasting. And we saw around 2013 thereof government through bars actually licensing commercial radio stations, and the struggle has been ongoing for community radio. We've been advocating, we've been lobbying, we have membership and so forth. They've been doing programs on alternative media platforms, trying all sorts of alternative means to get the message for the grassroots men and women across the communities there, and that hadn't happened until even we can even speak of no community radio in Zimbabwe since 1980, and that has been the struggle, that has been the lobbying, that has been the advocacy, that has been the fight for the liberalization of the airwaves through the introduction of community radios, and that has finally happened in February 2020 when the government of Zimbabwe, through the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, made a call for licensing following the 10 allocated areas that they mentioned. And of those 10, we have 7 or 8 rather, 8 Zimbabwe Association of Community Radio Station members who applied by 31 July, which was the deadline. And then starting mid-November and currently still ongoing, bars had been visiting these areas for fact-checking mission and actual checking on their community support systems and basically the things that they had included in the application documents there. And then we, up to today, a few days ago, we have had 3 of those applicants actually receiving community radio licensing from bars, actually being licensed to say you have qualified to actually set up community radios within your areas. And these, as you mentioned earlier, these are Nyangani. And Nyangani is based, the allotted area was Rukoto and Susamoyo in Mudzite. And then there is Bembesi in Ngama, a community radio in Bembesi there. And then there's Tepe Manama community radio in Kwanda. But basically there will be taking care of the Manama and Legion areas. So you would notice that also that the licensing of these 3 is premised on the fact that there was no competition. But that does not discredit what the applicants had put through. If they had put through shallow or inadequate applications, obviously they wouldn't have sailed through. So would welcome that decision by the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe.
Yes, Mr. Wande, can you chip in? He speaks many languages. This guy, I think, about 14 languages. Quiet.
Mubasa renyu iri makatarisa kuva makasununguka zvakadini nekuti tinoona kuti sometimes panoita maproblems mamwe manewspaper ema-community achitadza kuenderera mberi. Imwe munotarisa kuti muchaita zvinhu zvakasiyana sei kuti murambe muchiita service kuvanhu?
Ini maonero angu ndinotenda mukana wamandipa uyu. Maonero angu awa ndiyo kuti nyaya yekutepfenyura iyi takatarisa maredhiyo emunharaunda dzatinogara tinoti macommunity radio. Iyi nyaya inoda mari dzakawanda uye inyaya inoshanda takatarisa mitemo irimo munyika. Zvakadaro takatarisira kuti Zacras ichibata pamwe nehurumende zvabvumirika izvozvo kuti hurumende itione tiri mapartners ecommunity radio development, tibatane tiwane kuti macommunity radios aya apiwa malicense asazosvika pakudona sezvamataura zvemacommunity newspapers aya. Takatarisa kuti mari dzacho dzekuti zvitefenyuka, mitemo yacho ibvumire kuti mari dzekutefenyura dzibve kunzira dzakawanda wanda, nekuti pane mutemo unoramba kuti mari dzibve kushe. Takatarisa sekwedu sememba yedu iyi yekunitepe manama kuGwanda ine vanhu vazhinji vari kunana South Africa, vari kunana Botswana nevamwe vari kunana UK, vamwe vari ikoko kunana America, vanenge vachida kuti vabatsire nhefenyuro yavo kudini kuti itefenyure. Zvino kana hurumende iyo ichiti hatidi kuti mari idzodzo dzive dzinopinda dzichibatsira, toda kuti tipagadzirise ipapo, nekuti ndizvo zvichaita kuti macommunity radio ave neupenyu usingaperi, atinoti sustainability.
Yeah, nxa sikhangeleke khonapho ke baba Zingwevu. Ama-community radio stations wona lawa imali ayithatha ngaphi?
Ikho lapha kade ngisakhuluma ngolimi lesishone lapho ukuthi uhulumende ubese the yena uza ancedisa imsakazo le emphakathini yangathi ngama community radios mangakaphambanisi kube kukhulunywa ngemali engafika kubo 3.9 billion yokuthi incedise ukusungula ama community radios la. Siyazi sonke ukuthi ukusakaza i-broadcasting ifuna imali eningi kakhulu, sikhayele imishina yangikhona lokuthi imishina yangikhona siyithola phandle angithi. So ngokunjalo sisazama futhi ukuthi thina njengezakras singathi siyalwisa mbijana ukuthi umthetho lo othi ama community radio engatholi imali ngaphandle esingathi foreign funding ungathi uyavumeleka kancane. Kungangcono bathi esilinganisweni sekhulu kumbe bethi kumbe 60% ukuthi ama community radio athola, ngoba siyathola njengaseNtepe Manama babudube eNtepe Manama kulabantu abaningi abemanama abaseGoli, abanye baseBotswana, abanye bakubo UK, abanye bangapho khona ngapho kwele Melika, mhlaba wonke jikelele nje sigcwele izizalwane zemanama lezi amanye ama community radios la azaphiwa izicoco zokuthi asakaze abefuna ukuthi abisele imali ezigabeni zabo ukuthi imsakazo le ibe khona. Uhulumende yena ngomthetho awufakayo ama community regulations ayawafakayo ngoNhlolanja 2020 ayihambisana lo mbiko wokuthi ama community radios apply for ama licenses kulo daba lokuthi akufunakali foreign funding. Yikho lapho sizama ukuthi sikulungisise ukuthi imali injani ivele. Njalo esinye sendingeko zokucela isicoco sokusakaza sasingesokuthi ama community radios la kumele abe singathi khona lamabhizinisanyana amabhizinisanyana eceleni azathuthukisa imisakazo le. Kodwa imali yamabhizinisi lawa ayihambi esikhwameni sikaDube, ayihambi esikhwameni sikaZingwevu, ayihambi esikhwameni sikaWande, but iyabisela khona abantu ekusakazeni. Njalo kuzaba lenhlelo eziyabe zibhadalelwe imali esingathi ngama sponsored programs, yiwo azasetshenziswa njalo ukuthi kutholakale imali zokusakaza.
Mr. Wande?
Saka dambudziko ramakavona pamakatanga kuapply nokuti unaso kuti zvakatora nguva chaizvo kuti malicense azopiwa vanhu. Munoona sokuti zvicharamba zvakadaro here kana kuti musuwo wabvo wazorukwa zvokuti munogona kuita basa pasina chimwe chibingamupinyi? Mataura nenyaya yekuti mari dzinobva kunze kuda pamwe havasi kuda, saka chamuchakwanisa kuita kuti murambe muchienderera mberi chakaita sechipi? Nokuti ava kuwanda kama community radio stations aya and ari kungo-broadcasta ku particular area munyika mese. Saka munofunga kuti zvichakwanisika here kuitika kuti mungawane mari yekuramba muchienderera mberi?
Isu zvatiri kureva isu seassociation yema-community radios muno munyika, hatisi kuti isu tisu tinopa ama-community radios aya mari yekuti vatefenyure. Pane yakatarwa muma-application documents evaka-apply inonzi sustainability plan yaidiwa nehurumende. Hurumende takatarisa bhazi, kana tichi hurumende tikutarisa bhazi apa Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe yaikati iyo ma-community radios aya ngatiratidze kuti kana tava pama-business ekutefenyura vachawana kupi mari dzacho. Nyange vadziwana mari dzacho tipei mabudget acho nema-cash flow projections acho acharatidza kuti mari dzenyu kwemakore 3 anotevera dzichabva kwakati dzichifamba dzakadai. Mabhizimusi enyu amuchaita nechekumashure kwekutefenyura achanga akamira sei. Tinotarisira kuti dzimwe mari dzichabva ipapo. Totarisira zvekare kuti dzimwe mari dzichabva mumaprogram atoti ma-sponsored programs achanga achiitwa. Zvinobvumirika izvozvo pamutemo yachanga achiitiwa, sekuti ngatingoti veWorld Vision voenda kuntepe Manama Community Radio kana kuinyangani ikoko voti ivo tikuda kuti mutitepenyurirewo nezvemabasa edu atiri kuita munharaunda uno, asi tichabhadhara mari yakati. Ndeimwe dzinzira yekuita kuti macommunity radios adi atepenyure. Zvekare takatarisira kuti tikuda kuti tivandudze, tikuda kuti timboti pikisane mbichana nehurumende nemutemo uyu weforeign funding, kuti kana zvaigona hazvo, kana vasingabvumi kuti mari yese 100% iuye, ngavangotarisa kabani kadiki diki pa percentage, kuti kana zvinane vangoti kana 60% zvayo, nekuti zvizvarwa zvakawanda zvenyika zviri kunyimiridza dzemakungwa dzinokwanisa kuti dzibudisewo mari dzekuti macommunity radios adini atepenyure. Izvozvo tiri kuzvitaura nekuti mutemo wecommunity radio pachawo haubvumiri yatinoti kushambadzira zvekutengesa, yatinoti advertising, haubvumi izvozvo. Saka panoti netsei ipapo, ndosaka tichida kutsvaga nzira dzakawanda, mamodels akawanda ekuti akabvumirika nemwamwe ari kurambidziwa kuti kusei mbichana kuti zvifambidzane macommunity radio zvedu atepenyure nekusingaperi. Asi masustainability plan awo nemabusiness model awo akatogadzikwa, tichivimba kuti ikonomi yeZimbabwe ichange ichibvumirikawo kuti izvi zvakatarwa muma-application documents zvive zvichifambirana nenguva.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cheris Ngwevu. Stand by, we are going to come back to you. So don't go away, we'll come back to you. So now there are so many issues that we are discussing today with Mr. Wande. So another issue that we are looking at is the presidential election in USA. So there's a lot that is happening right now, Mr. Wande. So tonight, as I have said, we're also talking about the United States presidential transition. President Donald Trump still insists that he won the election held in November, even if he lost to President-elect Joseph Biden, who has 306 electoral votes. Trump has 232 votes and lost the popular vote by 7 million votes. At the moment, the Trump campaign has filed a petition in the Supreme Court seeking an order to overturn the election results in Pennsylvania. The Trump campaign wants Pennsylvania legislators to appoint a new electoral college to vote for Trump. Wande?
Yeah, imwe nyaya tiri kutarisa nhasi ndiye sarudzo dzakaitwa muno muAmerica mwedzi wapfuura uyu. VaTrump vachiri kungorambana zvino wese kuti vakakundwa. Izvi zvasara zvamboitika nenzira yazviri kuitika nayo izvi. Pane zvimwe zvakadai zvakamboitika makore apfuurayo, asi zvakakurumidza kugadziriswa. Chimwe chatingada kuti titsanangura apa ndechekuti nyaya inoita sekuti inonetsa, kwete kuti pane zvakaitika, asi kuti pane vanhu vari kuramba kuti zvakaitika izvi ndizvo zvechokwadi. Saka panoita sekuti pane mutsauko ipapo, asi chinoita sekuti nakidze ipapo panechekuti mobva paona kuti democracy yacho iri kushanda sei, nekuti kune dzimwe nyika zvakadaro zvadi zvisingakwanisi kumboitika kana kumbosvika pazvasvika izvozvo. Saka ndiye imwe nyaya toda kuti titarise nhasi, nekuti vaTrump nanhasi vari kuramba kuti vakakundwa, asi vaBiden vasarigwa kuda nevhiki 4 chete kuti vachigadzwa kuti vapresident womutungamiri weAmerica. Saka zvose toda kuti titarise zvose izvo kuti zvinofambiswa sei, uye zvekuti pari zviniko zvose zvakamira papi.
Yes, Mr. Wande, we've got Mrs. Priscilla Ndlovu, who follows the election with passion. You know, she is in Washington State and has been, coming here, giving us a bit of comments here and there, but she's very much interested in what is going on. Let's listen to what she's saying about what Mr. Trump is doing right now.
Hello, Mr. Dube. Considering what President Trump could do that could harm the United States and maybe make things difficult for the next government, is very evident. He's not hiding what he is doing. For instance, he is still fighting. He lost through the courts. He has not conceded that he lost the election. He's still trying to cultivate other avenues, such as the one that General Flynn suggested a few days ago that he could invoke the martial law and then just cause disturbance so that there could be a rerun of the election. And the fact that he has not conceded that he lost the election, he's just created a precedence that in the future, another person who loses an election could just do what Trump did, because there is another person before that had done the same thing, and he was allowed to take state governments and local governments to court, trying to force them to change the election in his favor. He is also pardoning people like Flynn. General Flynn is the first person that he pardoned. We understand he's going to pardon, he might pardon himself and his family. How do you pardon yourself if you're not guilty? That's another question that the Americans should have. The unfortunate part is that all these things that he's scheming and planning to do that are illegal or are bad for the country, he's getting support from the people that he worked with. We understand recently there is the talk about the cyberspace invasion by Russia. The people that work with him, especially the Secretary of the State, Pompeo, says that it's Russia. He comes out, he says, no, it's not Russia, it might be China. It is clear that he's allowing Russia to do whatever they can do during this short time before government changes hands. In his time, he's not willing to confront Russia about what is happening. And he's completely not talking about the virus. He's just put it in his pocket. It's something that he's not going to talk about. There's a lot that he is doing that could be cause problems for the future government coming on the 20th of January 2021. Thank you.
So there you are one day. You know, she's talking about some of the issues that may face Americans. You know, one of the issues is the cyber attack, you know, on USA by Russia, and you know how Mr. Trump is actually reacting. And you remember Michael Flynn. He is one guy who was patroned by Trump, and then maybe he's trying to say Mr. Trump should invoke martial law so that he can overturn the election results where he lost. So, but according to some lawyers, they're saying that's very impossible. Cannot be done today. Cannot be done tomorrow. It will never be done in the near future. So now we've got our second guest, that is Mr. Busani Mbusontini. He lives in New York. Mr. Ntini, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Joy. How are you?
Very fine. How are things?
No, we're doing okay.
Yes.
We've entered the winter season, and
so we are.
Of course, the COVID-19, the numbers are going up.
And we're at a stage where Mr. Trump, his campaign, you know, has taken the matter back to court again, to the Supreme Court. What's your take on all this? You know, a lot is happening here.
No, I think what we're seeing is the last kicks of a dying horse. I think Trump and his campaign team will try to do everything in their power to prolong the election season. But of course, I don't think there is any outcome that will be different, or should I say, any outcome that will be in their favor. I think these are just delaying tactics. I think, like we have indicated before, it is just a tradition for an incumbent to concede that they lost. So Trump doesn't have to concede to Biden. He can make noise all the way up to January 20th at noon. There's nothing that we can do about that, unfortunately, because the Constitution does allow candidates to approach the courts if they believe that they have issues with the elections. But I mean, looking at what has happened since November 3rd, many federal courts have kicked out all these fraudulent claims coming from Trump's campaign. The Supreme Court refused to hear the Texas case. So when you look back, I don't think there is anything that has changed that will give them any advantage. But what we are seeing really is someone who wasn't prepared to lose, someone who is just stubborn and who is trying to keep us occupied with things that don't matter, while things that matter are happening in the background. For instance, now the guy that is actually leading, all these, pretty much leading the campaign is Mike Flynn, the guy that just came out of jail. I mean, what does that really mean? If you pardon someone to come out of jail and that person now is paying you back by, promoting your agenda. So I think there's definitely something wrong here. You think if Trump really had good data, or he had good data that there was fraudulent elections in November, he would not be using someone that was in jail. There are many other people out there that are capable to lead his team. But just the sign that he's using someone that is so desperate, someone that could easily be paying back for getting out of jail, is an indication that they're just doing as much noise as they can before Congress sits on January 6th to count and make the electoral votes official.
One day.
How does Mr. Trump's refusal to accept defeat affect U.S. politics today and tomorrow? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, it does impact the way people look at the U.S. because, sometimes, the image is important. But really, when you look at the Constitution, there is no requirement for him to concede. But I think, for the past 200 years that the U.S. has been around, people have, come out and say, yes, I was defeated. I mean, you can, have your grievances heard by the courts, and if the courts decide, you just move on. But, we are seeing, I think the Trump presidency hasn't been anything, normal, in U.S. politics. Even the way he came in and the way he's going to come out, it's just a unique situation. I think it's a mistake that happened within the U.S. Politics that will have far-reaching impact in the many years to come. Because I can see other people, pulling such strategies in the future. But definitely what Trump is doing is just, soiling the democracy in the U.S. I believe that's what he's doing.
Yes, Nomsa.
Ngombono wami ngibona ngani wenza kaTrump kuzaphambanisa indlela ilizwe leMelika elikhangelwa ngalo namazwe amaningi. Njalo lezi zalwane zeMelika zizaqala ukudawutha ukuthi idemocracy yabo kalivele imi kanjani. Siyananzela ukuthi Trump kungena kwakhe vele kwakungayisikho okujayelekileyo, kodwa abantu kumbe babethi bafuna umuntu oyehlukeneyo, bazama u-Obama ukuthi bezame umuntu omutsha, umuntu omnyama, umuntu ongekho oyengasiyo, amakhiwa kumbe ngithi umuntu oyevele efamilini ye-politics, kwakhanya lapho azange bekuthande ekucineni. So kubuye uTrump babezama ukuthi ayasifakeni u-businessman, umuntu ongasiye opolitiki, but sesibonile ukuthi o-businessman akusebenzi njalo labo. So siyabona ukuthi yebo leMelika lingabe likhangeleka kakubi, kodwa iqiniso ukuthi ama-pillars e-democracy ayatshengisa ukuthi hayi wona ayasebenza, ngoba ngokuya uTrump ubani wesenza intando yakhe bani vele was-declare na ukuthi uwinile. Kodwa siyakwazi ukuthi lapha eMelika kulama-pillars amakhulu kakhulu, ama-institutions aqinile. Yikho nje nje ezama akuzamayo, kodwa sibone ukuthi uzaphumelela ukwenzayo.
Yes, stay on the line there. So we also have Priscilla Ndlovu. She's speaking in Ndebele. Let's hear what she's saying about the presidential transition.
Yebo, Mr. Dube. Umbuzo wokuthi uTrump kuyina ngawenza ngalesi sikhathi ama-election esephelile, esesalelwe izinsuku ezingaba inyanga kuphela, ukuthi kuyina ngakwenza okungaba luhlupho kusasa ephambilini ekubuseni komuntu olandelayo. Siyabona ukuthi ngalesi sikhathi uTrump kakavuma ukuthi usenqotshiwe ku-election njalo ukuthi uBiden loKamala Harris ngababusi belizwe leMelika kusuka mhla ka-20 January. Uza kuvuma lokho, but ngalesi sikhathi esiseleyo kuyabonakala ukuthi uzama ukwenza okubi. Singabona ukuthi kulombiko ukuthi iRussia iyangenela ku-cyberspace ukuthi ilimaze igovernment yeAmerica. Uyala uthi kayisiyo Russia. Abantu abasebenza laye bathi iRussia inothi iChina. So uthi ukuthi lapha uyivumela iRussia ukuthi ngenze intando okokugcina ngasikhathi yena eloku esabusa. Njalo okunye sikubonayo ukuthi ulungiselela ukuxolela abantu abephula umthetho ngesikhathi sakhe abangabangani bakhe ukuthi achiye sebakhuphile entolongweni. Oqala sibonile ukuthi ukhiphe uFlynn. Ungakhutshwa nguTrump kumele ubhadale khona ukuthi usekukhuphile. uFlynn usekhuluma ukuthi uTrump kafake i-martial law ukuthi khona uBiden engasoze abuse kuza kwenziwa futhi i-election ukuthi bancintisane futhi okwesibili. Siyakubona lokhu ukuthi ngabantu asebehlabela ingoma yomuntu abakhangelela ukuthi uyabanceda ekubafihleni izenzo zabo ezimbi ezingabahlalisa ejele. Kulusizi ukuthi bakhona abanye abantu abasebenza laye abangafanele ukuthi bahle bamtshela ukuthi hayi umkhokheli awuphumelelanga embusweni njalo akulunganga ukuthi lokhu siqhubeke sikwenza. Abaphikisana laye sokubonakala ngokuthi usebaxotsha umsebenzi njengo uWilliam Barr bevele esebenzela yena uTrump. Sibona ukuthi usemxotshile umsebenzi ukuthi umsebenzi kawusekho ngoba kalandelanga intando yakhe. Kunengo ungekho emehlweni abantu angakudiliza njengoba umuntu wakhona ekhanya nje ukuthi hayi umoya wakhe mubi uzondile ukuthi akawinanga yena ubezikhangelela ukuthi awine abe le second term.
So there you are, Mr. Wande. I think you heard Mrs. Priscilla Ndlovu saying, you know, the problem that is there is that there's no one who can actually tell Mr. Donald Trump not to do what he's doing right now. So it seems as if, you know, there's that issue where, you know, as an advisor, at times you find it very difficult to tell people what to do because someone can say, no, you're advising me, I can take it or leave it, you know. So we've got that kind of a problem. So we're joined by two gentlemen right now. We've got Reverend Mtombeni, that is Raphael Mtombeni in Dallas, Texas, and we've got Dr. Simbama Waza in London. So let's start with Mr. Mtombeni. Go ahead, Wande.
What I wanted to find out, taking from what the lady just explained, is that how come there are no safeguards to prevent such things from happening? Because we do recognize that the powers that a president has, but some of these things people never thought that they could be abused or used in a way that impacts on the nation like what we are seeing now. How come there are no safeguards to, you know, to protect the behavior of a sitting president or to protect the people from the behavior of a sitting president if they should decide to do some things that are not according to script?
Reverend Mtombeni?
Well, I think this has taken democracy by surprise because in the normal circumstances, from generations, which is about over 200 years now, there have been these free transitions where a president concedes, and then there is this transition. They never thought that there is this kind of weakness or loophole in the constitution or in the democracy itself. So I think after this, they will have to sit down and re-look into this, because this is a period that two presidents transit, the incoming and the outgoing. So usually it runs smoothly, except this particular one, who is showing some kind of rocky and macho, like, he's out of norm. But it is not surprising as far as I'm concerned, because he showed these signs even earlier. I remember in one interview when I left the interview myself personal and said, this is the end of democracy. When he said publicly that I'm not going to concede, I'm not going to. I'll have to look at how the elections were done and run. And to myself, I said, oh God, that's the end of democracy right there. Because this is now, like a third world country or other countries that we normally know. As some of these countries, you cannot do anything to a sitting president, except there is not even any constitution to move the sitting president. Fortunately, this system, it gives this window between the two presidents. And then what is going to happen is when January 20 comes, he has no choice, but he will have to move. Only what he can do before then is what will surprise us. But still, the constitution in this country is clear to say there's this transition up to the 20th. By the 20th, the other president comes in. All the steps have been taken towards that.
Yes, so at the end of the day, we see Reverend Tombeni, that somebody even spoke about invoking martial law. What does it mean to you as a person who has lived in America for a long time? What's the meaning of that?
That's exactly. These are the surprises that we get, which we didn't expect. And what is good about the American situation is that there is separation between the army and the state. I don't think at this moment to overturn the elections, the army will go along with that. If they go along with that, that will be another surprise. Another surprise in the American system. When he's talking about martial law, he's just introducing something that is unthinkable as well, because the martial law is, I don't think it's used in this manner where the democratic elections have been done and you lost the elections, and then you start calling on the on the army to do the martial law. I don't think that is proper. I don't believe it's gonna even happen here.
Thank you very much. And stay on the line, Reverend Tombeni. One day we've got another guest, and that is Dr. Simba Mavaza, who is in UK. Dr. Mavaza, welcome to the program.
Welcome, Gibbs and Mr. Wande and my good Reverend.
Yes, Wande, go ahead.
Yes. Makadiko enyu Dr. Ndakachida kubvunza kuti zvamuri vari vamwe vari kuda kuenzanisa zviri kuitika muAmerica pama-elections aya nezvinoitika kune dzimwe nzvimbo pasi pose zvikuru sei kuAfrica. uyezve vamwe vari kutoti America haina chimiro chokuti itaurire dzimwe nyika pamusoro pedemocracy. Ndo maonero enyu here kana kuti munoona kuti izvi zvakasiyana nekuti handiwo murayiro wemuAmerica uri kuitika uyu, handizvo zvazvinofanira kuita, uye system yacho ine nzira dzokugadzirisa zvinhu zvakaita saizvozvi zvisingawanikwi kune dzimwe nyika. Munozviona sei papa?
Chekutanga, thank you so much. The point iri clear ndeyekuti America yakagadzira zvinhu zvayo zvinogona kunge zvisingaoneki chaizvo, asi kuAmerica presidential transition process inoitwa iyo kana after the president elect of the United States akugadzirira kupinda paumambo kana pakutonga kana pachigaro. Izvi zvaka this regulation yaka-adoptwa 1933, so it has been working up to now. The 20th amendment to the constitution yanga 1993 yakamuva kuti after any elections kubva musi wa4 January kusvika musi wa20 January after elections there have to be a transition. So the process yekuti vanhu vabve nekuti vabude muofisi iri kutoitwa in the process. Yes, problem iripo ndeyekuti democracy hazvingoreva kungobvuma zvavasingabvumirane nazvo. Trump is actually putting democracy at test. Kuti democracy means inini kana ndichifunga kuti ndakawina, I want to be to show my proof yekuti ndawina kusvika ndanzi no ndaruza. Saka Trump is exercising his democratic right. Of course, there are a lot of people out there who are so excited because Trump along the way pangari president akatsika konzi vanhu vakawanda mukati mekutonga nyika umu zvokuti vazhinji vada kuona his back before sunset. So that does not mean that the American system has to be moved by social media or by what people think around there. The reality is the reason why the president in America after elections anogara 3 months achingori sitting, or the Americans call him a lame duck president, meaning an outgoing president. Mune dzimwe nyika dzakaita seZimbabwe, England, everywhere else, kana president munowana asarudzwa nhasi mangwana kusenata wa kustate house hazvina 4 days. America in a process, but however while you are going through that process hazvina kubvira zvaitika kuti pane aita nharo pakati peprocess iyi, vamwe vakaenda kumatare akadeclare zvikapera zvakadaro. So in other words, what Trump is saying, yes, it looks quite revulsive kunesu tisinganzwisise the system, but he's doing what is within the law. He has gone to court, he has lost a lot of court cases zake, but hatifanire kumublame for taking the measure to court. It is right. The only thing we can draw similarities to what Trump is doing to what happened in our own country, Zimbabwe. KuZimbabwe tine mapato anotiwo tisati tira elections anotanga kutodaidzira kuti ndakarigwa, handisi kuaccepta result, and when result comes they rush to court. Kana court yavati vari wrong vangoramba ndikoti illegitimacy. We know about that. I'm directly talking about MDC, but what we are saying is MDC, when it does that, it's doing their democratic right, so we cannot blame them for that. So we can't blame Trump for the same thing as well, because this is exactly his democratic right. In other words, we are simply saying kana achinge aramba kubva musi wa20 January after every system in America yamuti you have lost, haarambe kubva, anobviswa. Zvavanoita kuAmerica ndizvokudai so probably it's in the public domain. Kana president nguva yake yekubva yasvika aramba kubva, masystem ese anongokata, there will be no security, inobva yabviswa, convoy yake inobviswa, and anenge asina access to any intelligence and everything. Anenge angova ega, and he will see to himself kuti apa hapana zvekuita apa, anongobuda oenda. But normally it's dignified kubuda uchiri kudiwa, uchiperekedzwa, uchichengeta zvekuitwa vamwe. But kuzongobuda semunhu aita mbimbindoga oga, zvinoratidza kuti democracy is not what we think. Democracy is not, it does not make people an yes men, but still, yes, pane kaumbibindoga, kaunyanya, kaunongedza maine chombo kari kuitwa na Trump, kasingafanire kubvumirwa kuti kaenderere mberi.
So looking at what is happening, Dr. Mavaza, do you think that Mr. Trump may refuse to vacate the White House? Is that possible?
No, he cannot refuse. If all the systems in America can point to his loss and Vachimudza to have lost, he cannot refuse. He will be removed. And every system will just stop operating, and he will cease to be the president. So all the Jews which comes to him as a president, and by so doing, he cannot stay, so he cannot refuse, and he knows better. He's not, for now, on a right here to argue, I'm not leaving. Because as a president, I will fight discrepancy. There's a discrepancy. It will be shooting himself in the foot. If he stands up and say, "I'm preparing to go, but Nabirwa," he will say, "I am not going."
Are
we all there?
Yes.
He will argue and say, "I am not going." Why is he doing that? This is a message to his supporters. But in reality, and to everybody else, he cannot say, "I am not going." He must be seen to be staying there. But when every court says, "No, Mr. Trump, you have lost," he cannot say, "I'm not going." It will be committing a crime, and it will be a serious assault to democracy.
Thank you very much. Hold on there. Let's go to Mr. Busani Busontini. Babuntini, uyazwela lapho uyakhuluma uDr. uMabaza. Uyatsho ukuthi hayi nxa isikhathi sesifikile uzasihambela nje ngokuthula umongameli Trump. So ke wena ubona ngalizani ke ngesukwana lezi ezilandelayo. 30 days usele ngake namhlanje. Sokusele kumbe 28 or so days. So yaso sikhathi eside kakhulu lesi ukuthi angagcina senza imthanithani lapha. Ukucina kuhlupha lapha. Hello, Babuntini, uyangizwa?
No, I agree.
Yes, quiet.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, quiet, sir. Quiet. Yes.
Yes, I do agree with Dr. Mabaza in the fact when it comes to Trump having the right to go to court and exhaust all his opportunities in court. But what I don't agree with Trump is the top of the martial law. I think those things are offside. Those things are not even American, when it comes to elections. Yes, within the next 29 days that are remaining, I think he's going to make as much noise as possible. But I think deep inside, if someone was inside the White House, I'm sure they're actually doing some packing. They are preparing to leave, but they're going to try to cause as much damage as they can. But come January 20th, I think a new administration will come in. There is nothing that Trump can do. The army will not go with him, even if he wanted to, impose the martial law issues. I think when he talks about martial laws, he's really talking about the militias. We know in the US there's many militias that can get involved and things can really get ugly in many states. I think that's where, I can see issues with people picking up guns and trying to exercise, their, amendment rights. But I do not see that going with the professional army and all the other professional politicians is not going to happen.
Thank you very much, and stay on the line. You can mute your phone so that we can proceed to Mr. Zungwevu. Mr. Zungwevu, your last word on the community radio stations, and before maybe you sum it up, then you can tell us about Christmas. Briefly, we are giving you just a minute to wrap up. Mr. Zungwevu.
About the issue of community radios.
Yes.
I think one of the most critical things is we implore upon the government of Zimbabwe, particularly the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, to recognize ZACRAS as a partner in the development of community radios in the country, and not necessarily in all systems as a competitor, because we're looking at issues of capacity issues. We're talking of citizen journalists, we're talking of community volunteers, most of whom are not really well trained in content gathering and so forth. And even if they are trained, they will still need capacity enhancement and skills upliftment, especially given the context of the growing and emerging technological trends. So this is what ZACRAS is all about, in as far as going forward is concerned. Skills enhancement and capacity building, and ensuring that all that will make a long-lasting, sustainable working environment for community radios.
And then lastly, Christmas. Is Christmas showing any signs of being a good time?
It's a COVID Christmas. We have been warned. We are not going anywhere. We will stay indoors and pretend to be indoors and observing COVID regulations. Yet the economy is really miffed us.
Mm-hmm. So lastly, Mr. Wande, Christmas with Reverend Tombeni.
Well, it's going to be a different type of Christmas this year.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of fear, I guess, in the air. Reverend Tombeni, how do you expect this important period of the year to be celebrated amid this pandemic? What do you say to your folk about Christmas and the New Year?
Been a year that I am failing to describe, because for the church has never experienced anything like this in 200 years, where, 2,000 years, as it were, because we've never seen a situation where the Pope fails to serve Mass at the death of Jesus in April, or the Pope failing to celebrate Christmas with his people. So this is something that is serious as far as I'm concerned. So what I can advise the people is that let us adhere to what the scientists are saying, because it is true. This pandemic, this COVID-19 is a killer. So we have to be careful. It doesn't care whether you are church or no church, but we should take heed of what they are telling us and advising us. We need to keep away from crowds. We need to mask ourselves all the time. And that is what I'm re-emphasizing over what is already said by many doctors and scientists.
Yes,
engikutshoyo ukuthi ichechi ikhanya ichayekile sibili kakhulu esingakaze sikubone kumbe siku-experience. Njengathi thina abafundisi sijayele ukujumayela ukuthi kuzoba khona imikhuhlane engelaphekiyo, kuzoba khona indlala, kuzoba khona zonke lezi zinto. Siyabe singananzelela ukuthi okuyizinto lokhu kungasifica sisaphila, so thina sikutholile ngoba ungakhangela ichechi asikaze sibone isima ichechi kuthiwa khona abantu bangahlangani ngenxa yokuthi kutheni loba kuyalwiwa loba kuyathini ichechi bihlangana. Kodwa lo umkhuhlane okuthiwa yi-corona, lo i-COVID-19 yenze kwema yonke into emhlabeni. Yikho-ke esikumangalayo khona lokho. So nxa ngingacebisa-ke nxa sikhangela i-Christmas yikuthi abantu balalele khona lokho okukhulunywa yilaba abezempilo ukuthi abantu bangahlangani, abantu bangabi ngama-group amaningi, abantu bahlale ezindaweni zabo. Uhlale lo muntu omejayeleyo, njengoba mina ngihlala lapha lo nkosikazi sibabili, sihlale sikhona apha sibabili, kungabi labanye abantu ababuyayo esingabaziyo ngoba singagcina sesigula. So engikutshoyo ukuthi sikuzwisise sibili ukuthi umkhuhlane lo uyabulala, owe-COVID lo uyabulala sibili. Kufanele ukuthi sihlale sehlukane, sifake ama-maski ngezikhathi zonke.
Yes, siyabonga kakhulu-ke umfundisi uReverend Mtombeni. Sorry, our time is up and we have to leave it there. We thank our guests this evening, Mr. Jerry Zingwevu of the Zimbabwe Association of Community Radio Stations, Reverend Raphael Mtombeni, who lives in Texas, and then we had Mr. Husani Musontini, an independent political commentator who's based in New York, and we had Dr. Masimbama Vaza, a ZANU-PF activist based in London. Signing off is Gibbs Tube in Maryland, saying good night, Zimbabwe.
Good night.
And thank you so much, Wande.
Thank you, Mr. Dube. Thank you so much.
Okay, good night.
Thank you, Reverend Mtombeni. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.